Good morning, everybody. We would like to start the plenary. Because it will be a busy day. So please, if you could take your seats. And I hope everybody is still fresh and fruity for this last day. So we start with the reports back from the contact groups, and I would like to begin with the contact group on replenishment. So I'm not sure who will take the floor. If it's Mexico or Belgium, please. One of you can report back, please. Belgium, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. So, sorry, I can report to you that we had a meeting yesterday, but it will be no science fiction for you that we didn't finish exactly the work we were assigned to. So, we started examining the list of different proposals of new elements to be considered by the RTF. We are still in the process of doing so, so we would like to just ask you to extend some more time for us for finishing the discussion today.
Thank you, and indeed you made progress, and you will still have some time to finish the business today, because it's quite important that we get the list. Then I would like to go to the contact group on the terms of reference for the quadrennial, the next quadrennial. Who can I give the floor? And I think it's the USA. Cindy, please.
Thank you very much, and many thanks to the group. We had good participation this morning. We have walked through the first part of the decision, the preambular and direction to one of the panels, and we're partially through making progress on working through direction to the science assessment panel. We have not yet begun our work on the technology and economic assessment panel. We have clarified some points, and we have a list of areas that will be added based on input from the group. We realize it's a very busy day today, but if the co-chairs and secretariat are able to work together, perhaps to find an additional hour, the group would very much appreciate that. We'd like an opportunity to at least get first reflections on all of the decision so that we can have good positive intersessional work ahead of the meeting of the parties. So with your indulgence, we'll ask that you consider if there is time on the schedule for even a brief follow-up discussion. Thank you.
Thank you by reporting back the progress, and you made good progress. Also heard the request to have some more time, but it will be indeed very difficult to find an additional slot. So by your understanding, I really would like to thank you for your work, but it will be quite difficult to fit something in today. So I think most of the work then has to be done, let's say, towards the MOP, which is, but I'm quite confident we can get there, and I would like to thank you for all the good work, and also Grenada for all the good work you did in the contact group on that. I would like to give the hand over to my co-chair.
Merci Raph. Bonjour à tous. Nous allons prier le groupe de contact sur les propositions d'ajustement au protocole de Montréal de nous présenter le rapport de leurs travaux. L'Australie ou bien l'Argentine, celui qui est prêt.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and good morning, everyone. And my apologies, I was waiting for the interpretation to come through and then found I had the wrong channel. So my mind is a little bit behind the rest of the room. Just as a brief report back, we met again yesterday to discuss the proposal from Cuba, as well as the item on countries indicating they may be experiencing problems meeting the freeze and phase down targets as a result of the COVID pandemic. We've had quite good discussions in understanding the problems. Yesterday we were focusing somewhat more on trying to work out which countries were experiencing problems. A few countries have indicated who indicated in the information they provided to the Secretariat earlier in the year that they were thinking they would have problems, have now indicated that they no longer feel that way. So we do need more time to tease this matter out, and if there's more time during today, that would be greatly appreciated. But also the co-conveners would like to make an appeal to parties in this room. First of all, if there are parties who now wish to indicate that they are no longer experiencing difficulties or foresee they will experience difficulties, if they could notify the Secretariat. For those that still feel that they'll be experiencing difficulties, if you haven't been attending the contact group, I would really urge you to attend the contact group if we have time for one today, and would also urge that if there are countries, and we've heard that there may be additional countries who feel they are having difficulties, they really need to attend the contact group so the whole contact group can understand the extent and rationale of the problem. So I would make that appeal on behalf of myself and Juan, so we can have a discussion that gets the all the elements involved. So thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and I would look forward to having additional time today if you are able to fit it into the schedule.
Merci beaucoup à l'Australie pour le point qui a été fait. Nous comprenons que les choses se précisent de mieux en mieux et qu'il y a une évolution au niveau des informations. Il y a une cohérence maintenant qui se dégage et les pays qui ont eu les difficultés sont de plus en plus mieux connus et les autres difficultés, les autres contraintes sont de plus en plus connues également. Bon, ce que nous allons dire, c'est vrai, nous avons des contraintes, nous sommes jusqu'au cou, mais nous allons pouvoir vous trouver un créneau pour que vous puissiez poursuivre le travail et que d'ici là, nous puissions avoir encore des avancées au niveau du groupe de contact. Donc, je vous remercie beaucoup. Je passe la parole à mon coach.
Yeah. Thank you. We go to the informal groups, and they met yesterday. So first on the strengthening of the Montreal Protocol, and I would like to ask the Maldives or Denmark to report back. Maldives, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. The informal group on strengthening Montreal Protocol institutions, including for combating illegal trade, met yesterday. Some parties in the group expressed the interest of preparing at least one CRP, and possible elements to consider in future drafting were listed, such as preventing illegal trade, licensing system, reporting system, and assessment of opportunities to strengthen the Montreal Protocol. As a way forward, noting the limited time we currently have, the informal group agreed upon continuing the discussion in intersessional discussions before submitting a CRP or CRPs for the consideration of MOP 35. The non-exhaustive list of possible elements to consider for future drafting have been posted on the Ozone Secretariat website. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you. A very good and very concise reporting back, and I understand you don't want you don't need time for a second meeting, as I understand, and you prepared a list of issues, and that list of issues can be annexed to the report of this meeting, and that will be then let's see, be forwarded also to the MOP. I would like to thank you, Maldives, Mariosa, and Denmark, Martin, for your good work for that. Also on behalf of my co-chair, thank you. I would like to give the floor. No, I hand over to Videme, please.
Merci beaucoup, Raph. Nous allons passer au groupe informel sur la question de l'importation illégale de certains produits et équipements de réfrigération, de climatisation et de pompe à chaleur. Nous allons demander à l'honorable délégué Andrew ou bien Samoa de nous faire économie, l'honorable délégué de USA ou bien du Samoa de nous faire économie de leurs travaux. Celui qui est prêt, je vous en prie.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Indeed, the group met yesterday evening, and we're pleased to report that a draft proposed decision was presented by Ghana on behalf of the African states, entitled Shared Responsibility to Stop Dumping of Inefficient Cooling Equipment Containing Obsolete Refrigerants. In line with usual procedures, the text was not negotiated as it was not submitted to the Secretariat at the time. However, parties were given the opportunity to seek clarifications from the proponents and provide general comments. And definitely we received very constructive reflections from the parties. And on behalf of my co-facilitator, we thank all parties for their spirit of collaboration. The CRP is now loaded on the meeting portal as indicated on the screen as CRP 8 for the parties' information. And Mr. Co-Chair, we are in your hands for guidance on the way forward as we are on the last day of our meeting, whether it would be possible to, if this is enough time for the parties to consider this in a contact group, or further discussions on this matter should be forwarded to the upcoming MOP. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Merci à l'honorable délégué du Samoa. Nous comprenons qu'il y a un travail qui a été déjà fait et que nous avons des informations concernant la question des importations illégales et exportations. Effectivement, le secrétariat a reçu le CRP 8 qui a été soumis par le Ghana au nom du groupe Afrique. Je voudrais demander à l'honorable délégué du Ghana de nous présenter ce CRP. le Ghana, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair, and may I take this opportunity to thank all the distinguished delegates who met at the informal group yesterday to give very valuable reflections on the CRP. The CRP is shared responsibility to stop dumping of inefficient cooling equipment containing obsolete refrigerants. Submission by African states. The 35th meeting of the parties decides, recognizing their compliance with the Montreal Protocol on the substances that deplete the ozone layer, and its amendment involves a shared responsibility between importing and exporting parties. Welcoming the comments of certain parties to prohibit in domestic regulations the export of cooling equipment not satisfying their national regulations and or standards. 1, request that parties manufacturing and exporting cooling equipment consider instituting measures involving shared responsibility to stop exporting cooling appliances with obsolete refrigerants and encourage the supply of next generation cooling equipment. 2, further request the Technology and Economic Assessment Panel to provide preliminary report to the parties at the 35th meeting of the parties and to update this report for the discussions at the 46th OEWG, providing examples of technically and economically feasible measures of shared responsibility where cooling equipment that is prohibited from use in a domestic market is also prohibited from export. This is the CRP that was presented. And just as the co-facilitator indicated, we defer to the wisdom of the co-chair for your kind direction. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup à l'honorable délégué du Ghana. Le CRP 8, effectivement, aborde la question de l'importation illégale et de l'exportation non réglementaire. Ce que nous voudrions proposer, c'est que ce CRP soit transmis, le CRP 8 soit transmis à la MOP pour considération et que, entre-temps, les discussions, les efforts de consolidation des informations se poursuivent. Et je voudrais vous soumettre cette proposition et accueillir votre vision de la chose. Je vous remets la parole, l'honorable délégué du Ghana.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Just as I indicated yesterday, there were valuable reflections, constructive criticisms, and valuable inputs, which makes the CRP a work in progress. So we do not object to your proposal. Thank you very much.
Je vous remercie pour l'accord. Donc, nous allons clôturer ce point et nous allons aborder le point suivant qui va nous amener à informer les parties sur les nouveaux CRP qui ont été soumis. Nous allons considérer au premier point le CRP 5 qui a été soumis par l'Australie et le Canada. nous allons prier les honorables délégués de l'Australie ou bien du Canada de nous présenter ce CRP et après nous allons discuter par rapport à ce document. L'Australie, je vous en prie.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. As this delegate indicated under Agenda Item 3A, we would be working on a CRP in relation to stratospheric aerosol injection and protection of the ozone layer. As we indicated, I think at the time, we very much appreciated the assessment provided by the Scientific Assessment Panel this year. We took note of the recent UNEP report called One Atmosphere. We also noted that there was limited scientific information available on the risks to the ozone layer of stratospheric aerosol injection, and that there were potential for negative effects. So we have produced a short CRP which invites the global scientific community to address risks and uncertainties for the ozone layer in any scientific studies or assessments undertaken in relation to stratospheric aerosol injection. And we have requested the SAP to engage with the global scientific community any important developments with respect to stratospheric aerosol injection as it relates to the ozone layer. In terms of the way forward for this meeting, Co-Chair, we are aware that this issue may not just be in the realm of ozone protection, the ozone community, and that delegates might need some time to further consider this CRP. So we would request that we take this issue up at the meeting of the parties and allow parties time to consider the elements in this CRP. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup à l'honorable délégué de l'Australie. Merci aussi pour la clarté de la présentation. Nous comprenons que ce CRP demande suffisamment que ce travail soit fait et qu'on puisse fédérer également d'autres expertises pour mieux aborder la question. Donc, on propose de transmettre ce document de travail à la prochaine réunion des parties. Donc, le secrétariat a pris note et va ainsi transmettre le document à la prochaine réunion des parties. Je vous remercie. Je vais clôturer ce point et donner la parole à mon co-chair.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to go to the CRP that was already announced yesterday by Switzerland, CRP 6. And please, Switzerland, could you introduce the CRP?
Yeah. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you for providing the opportunity to introduce our CRP. As we mentioned in our yesterday's intervention, we have the concern about significant emissions from CTC feedstock and other processes involving CTC. So other processes which are also indicated in the TEEP progress report. So we were interested in providing a path forward to solving this issue together as parties. And for this time, we think that we need to better understand the technological options that are at the parties' disposal to minimize CTC emissions. And therefore, in our CRP, after referring back to the pertinent decisions and the TEEP report with its principal findings, we suggest a single operative paragraph in which we would request TEEP to compile a list of best practices and technologies by process and by geographical region for minimizing CTC emissions and emission rates, and to indicate the minimum CTC emission rates that have been achieved in different regions and for the various processes. We consider that this additional information would be helpful to understand what we as parties can do together to tackle the challenge of CTC emissions. We invite parties to reflect on this and allow for a deeper discussion of this approach at the upcoming MOP. And of course, we are available in the meantime for an informal exchange. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you, Switzerland, by presenting this CRP. You proposed already a way forward, and I think that's indeed a good idea to have a discussion at the next MOP on this issue, based also on your CRP. And if there are no other comments from the room, I would like then to close this, but indeed parties can be involved in discussions till the next MOP, till it comes back. Yes, then I would like to hand over again to Videme. Sorry, I think India is on the list. Sorry, I was a little bit too quick. India, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and very good morning to all. We thank the delegate of Switzerland for introducing the CRP. Mr. Co-Chair, in response to Decision 34/6 of the MOP, MCTOC of the TEEP provided information on best practices followed to control emissions. So in this context, we would like to understand how it would address the processes followed in various regions and how it would assess the emission rates achieved based on the available information. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Please, Switzerland, could you answer that question?
Thank you to the Indian delegation for bringing forward this question. We read in the TEEP report a generic list of best practices and for different feedstock processes, which might be a very good starting point, but which in our view do not yet consider the potential difficulties that specific processes might need to consider, or which even in specific geographical region might exist. So we do not know if there are what could be the particular issues there, but we would like really to get a picture that would really help us to move path forward and understand potential difficulties that arise for very specific situations, so that we really have a way forward how to go. I'm not sure if I could address sufficiently the question by the Indian delegation, but I'm also happy to exchange informally after the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland, and look to India if this clarification is, if you need some more information or if that's okay.
Thank you, Co-Chair, for giving the floor again. So we would like to discuss this, and definitely we can discuss it in further detail in the next mock. Thank you.
Thank you. So then what I concluded, it can be discussed at the next MOP, and parties can have then still some time to get in touch with each other for this meeting in Nairobi. Then I close this item, and then I definitely would like to go to my co-chair.
Merci beaucoup, Raph. Passons maintenant au CRP 6, qui aborde la question des émissions continues de tétrachlorure de carbone. Ce CRP a été soumis par Swissland et je voudrais inviter l'honorable délégué de la Suisse de nous présenter ce CRP. Veuillez nous excuser. Je vais prendre le point concernant les stocks de tétrachlorure. Là, je parle du CRP 7 maintenant, qui concerne les stocks. Je vais inviter l'Australie pour nous faire économie.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Yes, Australia is happy to present this CRP. We recall that at your direction, we were encouraged to develop a CRP at this meeting, and actually prior to the discussions we had hoped we would undertake before developing the CRP. So unfortunately, this CRP has not had the benefit of the type of consultation we would normally like to undertake before presenting it. But we have had some consultations, but certainly we appreciate that we have not consulted with all parties who might be interested in this CRP. As delegates will recall, the scientific assessment panel listed 3 issues that would be of most importance for parties to undertake, and one of those was addressing the issue of feedstocks, which is why we have brought forward this CRP. So essentially we are building on the few previous decisions that have been taken on this issue, in particular Decision 412, in which parties were urged to minimise their emissions of feedstock substances. And we reiterate that that decision that was taken perhaps nearly 30 years ago, so maybe it's a good time to have a reminder of that decision to take steps to minimise emissions of ODS substances produced or used as feedstock. And then we build on that by encouraging parties to replace, where technically feasible, the use of ODS with non-controlled substances in feedstock manufacturing processes or in the production of processes currently relying on ODS. We did hear from the Medical and Chemical Technical Options Committee some confusion about whether isolated and non-isolated intermediates, which are ozone-depleting substances, should be reported as production, and we understand that this has already been agreed, so it is a reminder to parties to include the unintentional production of these intermediates in their production reporting where such production is measurable. And we are conscious that in some cases those intermediates have a very short life as intermediates. Then we thought it might be interesting to invite parties to provide information on their domestic policies, practices and regulations relating to the management of feedstocks produced and their use of feedstocks, including any controls on the emissions to the Ozone Secretariat, because we think that might be a useful way of building knowledge amongst parties about systems and practices that are already in place for addressing this issue, and then requesting the Ozone Secretariat to summarise that information for our consideration next year. And then just requesting the TEEP to consider, sorry, I should note that actually I've got a date in brackets in paragraph 4, which obviously we need to revise. But then asking the TEEP to prepare a report for us next year on information on alternative chemicals and processes that can be used or implemented to reduce the need for feedstock production or the use of controlled ODS in feedstock uses, and then to provide estimates of global emissions of ODS by species from feedstock production. I think there is a lot of information, a lot of emission factors in various places, and we considered it would be a good idea to try and bring some of that information together. So that is the scope of the CRP. We are very happy to engage with other parties today as we have time. Informally, we would be happy to have a group to talk about the CRP, but we are conscious that time is short. So we're in your hands, co-chair, in terms of the way you'd like to take this forward, but obviously we will need some time to consider the CRP, and we're happy to do so at the MOP if that is the way forward. Thank you, co-chair.
Merci beaucoup à l'honorable délégué de l'Australie. Ce CRP7, c'est en fait une invite à toutes les parties pour que les parties puissent apporter des informations concernant les stocks de ce produit, puisque jusque-là, les informations que nous avons ne sont pas les meilleures. Il faut que nous puissions avoir des informations qui sont vraiment bonnes. Donc, l'Australie a pris le devant et nous a soumis ce CRP qui sera, comme vous le proposez déjà, qui sera considéré à la prochaine réunion des parties. Mais toutefois, des discussions peuvent toujours débuter à partir de la présente réunion. Nous n'avons pas beaucoup de temps. Les délégués sont déjà suffisamment dans plusieurs groupes de travail, que ce soit les groupes de contact ou bien les groupes informels. Mais il y aura toujours les opportunités pour pouvoir échanger sur cette question-là. Donc, nous vous suggérons, nous vous encourageons de poursuivre les discussions parallèles en attendant que nous puissions nous retrouver à Nairobi pour considération formelle et des discussions beaucoup plus approfondies sur ce document de réunion sur ce CRP. Donc, sur ce, je voudrais vous remettre la parole et également aux autres parties pour qu'ils puissent intervenir sur la question. Je vois déjà l'Inde qui se manifeste. Inde, vous avez la parole, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. We thank the delegate of Australia for introducing the CRP on feedstock uses. Mr. Co-Chairs, parties may note that Para 4 of Article 1 to the Montreal Protocol defines the controlled substance as a substance whether existing alone or in a mixture. It includes the isomers of any such substance except as specified in the relevant annexure, but excludes any controlled substance or mixture which is in a manufactured product. Further, para 5 of the Montreal Protocol defines production as the amount of controlled substances produced minus the amount destroyed by technologies to be approved by the parties. In this, we minus the amount entirely used as feedstock in the manufacture of other chemicals. Accordingly, feedstock is not controlled under the provisions of the Montreal Protocol. However, as per the provisions of Article 7 to the Montreal Protocol, reporting of feedstock is done annually by the concerned parties. Mr. Co-Chair, Decision 4/12 of the MOP clarifies that insignificant quantities of controlled substances originating from inadvertent or coincidental production during a manufacturing process or from their use as process agents which are present in chemical substances as trace impurities or that are emitted during product manufacture or handling shall not be covered by the definition of a controlled substance contained in paragraph 4 of Article 1 of the Montreal Protocol. ODS used as feedstocks are fed directly into the processes as a raw material stream or as an intermediate in the synthesis of another product. Intermediates are stored and used at the same site. Considering the national frameworks and processes which are in place, fugitive leaks or losses are almost negligible. Mr. Co-Chair, on perusal of the information summarized by the Medical and Chemicals Technical Options Committee in its 2023 progress report, based on information submitted by a few parties, we feel that most countries have effective process for management of CTC production for use as a feedstock, and accordingly, we feel that MCTOC should propose ways for strengthening capacities of parties wherever needed on strengthening such processes rather than adding additional burden on the parties. Mr. Co-Chair, regarding the CRP, as this was posted around last midnight, we need time to study the various proposed elements in more detail and also examine the implication of these elements on the stakeholders, which would be possible only through an inclusive consultative process at our domestic front. And that, because of that reason, it may not be possible, according to us, at this meeting. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Je remercie l'honorable délégué de l'Inde. Nous allons poursuivre. Nous avions pris bonne note de la déclaration qui vient d'être faite. Nous allons à présent demander s'il y a une autre partie qui voudrait intervenir. Et nous ne voyons pas. L'Australie, vous avez quelque chose à ajouter? Nous allons clore. Est-ce qu'il y a une dernière réaction? Yeah, vous avez la parole. Australie, vous avez la parole, je vous en prie. Après Canada et la Chine.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, and we thank India for their comments and their observations. We do understand the concept that emissions from feedstock uses should be negligible, but indeed, as we saw from the information provided by the TEEP, that in fact feedstock uses are increasing significantly year on year, and even small emissions from feedstock processes or use of feedstocks add up as those uses increase. And so it does appear to us that the emissions from feedstock production and or use are no longer negligible, and we should be thinking as parties about how we can better address those emissions. We do take the points on board that India has made, but we think, and we appreciate their willingness to look at the CRP between now and the meeting of parties. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup à l'honorable délégué de l'Australie. Avant de donner la parole au Canada et à la Chine, je voudrais faire une précision. Nous avions déjà envisagé une démarche à suivre qui consiste à transmettre ce CRP à la MOP pour considération et discussion beaucoup plus approfondie. Donc, à ce stade, nous ne souhaitons pas avoir des discussions, je veux dire, approfondies, discussions relevées sur ce CRP. Toutefois, les parties peuvent intervenir pour des observations d'ordre général. Donc, Canada, soyez précis et concis. Je vous en prie, vous avez la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Co-président. D'habitude, je ne suis pas concis ou... je vais essayer. Non, nous soutenons la démarche que vous avez décrite pour la considération de cette proposition. Donc, nous ne voulons pas ajouter quelque chose là-dessus. C'était juste pour noter notre intérêt et en général notre soutien pour cette proposition. Nous pensons qu'elle est très intéressante. Elle est sur un sujet très pertinent pour le protocole de Montréal en ce moment. Nous soulignons aussi qu'il y a des liens avec la CRP 6 présentée par la Suisse il y a quelques minutes sur le CTC, vu que le CTC est en grande partie produit et utilisé comme feedstock, et cette décision est sur les feedstocks. Donc, quand nous la considérerons au MOP, je pense que ce sera important de la considérer en conjonction avec la proposition sur le CTC de la Suisse. Et merci encore à l'Australie pour la proposition.
Merci beaucoup à l'honorable délégué du Canada. La Chine, je vais clôturer la liste à ce niveau. La Chine, je vous en prie, vous avez la parole.
谢谢主席。我们感谢澳大利亚代表团提出了这份 CRP， 因为我们代表团是今天上午刚刚看到这份 CRP， 所以我们还需要更多的时间进行研究。那么现在仅仅想做一些初步的看法的响应。首先呢，我们感谢澳大利亚代表团，给各缔约方回顾了第4次会议。 1992年第4次缔约方大会的第12项决议，那么我们也注意到，这个决定的题目是 clarification of the definition of controlled substances， 也就是说，当时的决定它最主要的一个结论是，作为原料用途的这样的物质是不受公约管控的物质。 所以这一条呢，我们觉得还是要再提醒一下，不受公约管控的物质，在我们对它进行要求的时候，要充分的考虑行业的发展情况以及他们的要求。那么还有一条，我们觉得对于35年以来，公约的缔约方做出了很多的决定，那么这些决定。 如果没有被新的决定推翻之前，他们都是有效的。我们没有必要在一次又一次的会议中反复的重申已经发生过并且仍然生效的决定。我们也没有必要提醒缔约方大家都公认的内容。所以我们感觉这个 CRP 当中其实还有很多内容可以斟酌是否有必要再反复的提及。第三。 在 CRP 当中提到关于减少排放的这么一些技术可行的措施，我们相信对于工业行业界来说，没有一个企业会故意的去增加作为原料用途的排放。那么如果有这样的排放存在，一定是存在着他们的技术难题或者是经济上的难题。那么在我们分析是否有技术上的可行性解决方式的时候，我们也必须考虑到。 这些技术上的可行方式是否在经济上也是可行的？对于这些工业企业来说，他们的影响有多大？所以在这方面，我们更需要更多的去和相关的企业进行沟通，了解他们的意见。谢谢主席。
Merci à l'honorable délégué de la Chine, l'Union européenne, et nous clôturons. Union européenne, vous avez la parole, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. The European Union would like to thank Australia for submitting this very important CRP, and we would like to participate in any consultation which may take place either still today or intersessionally, but we would also share the opinion voiced by Canada that here we should look at potential synergies with the equally welcome proposal made by Switzerland as CRP 6, and we would be happy to see it moving forward in Nairobi. Without going into the substance yet, we heard already some points which will certainly be discussed in depth in the contact group on this issue. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup à l'Union européenne. À ce stade-là, nous avons clôturé la liste et nous allons faire un récapitulatif des nouveaux CRP qui ont été soumis au secrétariat. Nous avons signalé 3 CRP, CRP 5, le CRP 7 et le CRP 6. Donc ces CRP seront transmis à la réunion des parties pour considération. Donc à présent, nous avons clôturé ce point et nous allons le secrétariat a une déclaration ou bien une annonce à faire. Donc nous allons donner la parole au secrétariat pour la dite annonce.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Good morning, delegates. The Secretariat would like to inform you all that the list of participants for this meeting has been posted on the meeting portal under the Post-Session Documents tab. The password is on the screen. It's OEWG45 LOP, OEWG in lowercase and LOP in uppercase. We would request that you review the LOP and submit any corrections to us by 14 July, and the email address is also on the screen. The final LOP with all the corrections will be posted on the meeting portal on 21st July. It will be in the under the same tab, post-session documents. We are also happy to inform that the DSA issue was resolved yesterday. While the delay is regretted, we appreciate the patience of our delegates, our funded participants. Thank you all.
Merci au secrétariat. À présent, nous allons suspendre les travaux en plénière et nous allons retourner dans nos groupes de travail. Nous allons retourner dans le groupe informel sur les substances à courte durée de vie, le groupe de travail informel sur le monitoring, le contact groupe sur le HFC 23, le contact groupe sur les propositions d'ajustement au protocole de Montréal et le contact groupe sur le renflouement. Donc, nous vous remercions pour votre attention. Nous allons, par la même occasion, préciser les facilitateurs. Pour le groupe informel sur les substances à courte durée de vie, il s'agit de de l'honorable délégué Yana Masikova et Liana de l'Arménie. Pour le groupe informel sur les gaps de monitoring, il s'agit de Sandrine Bernard de Norvège et de Anna Maria Clémer. Voilà les principaux facilitateurs. Les autres pour les groupes de contact sont déjà connus. Merci. Donc, veuillez de temps en temps regarder les écrans. Des informations actualisées vont toujours revenir pour vous orienter, pour vous guider dans les différents groupes de travail et aussi les side events, les réunions parallèles. Je vous souhaite succès dans vos groupes de travail et bonne journée en attendant qu'on se revoie tout à l'heure à la plénière dans l'après-midi. Merci.